the Nashville2 Podcast with your host, Edward Fox.
G'day, viewers and listeners. It's Ed Fox with another great episode of Nashville 2. How do I know it's great? Because we have a special guest for you today. And, you're Nashville 2, so let's tell your story. If you're a business owner or you're a mentor or you have a nonprofit that's doing some cool things around Nashville, we want to tell your story because you're Nashville 2. Hit me up, and you can find us in the show notes and all over all the Twitters and Facebooks and LinkedIns and podcasting platforms. If you can't find us, reach out to me and I'll tell you where you can find us. So my special guest today is Mrs. Jana Truman, and here's some cool stuff. She's given me a bit of a tongue twister, so I'm trying to put together what she does. So she's the owner and managing broker. I'm looking down here because I wrote the notes. Owner and managing broker of SVN Accel Commercial Real Estate. I'll look at that. Didn't trip over myself on that one. And also the owner of Accel Exit Advisors, which is a business brokerage firm, right? You buy and sell businesses for clients. Is that?
Yep.
Okay, good. The listeners can't hear you nodding, but the viewers can.
That is absolutely correct.
Well, hey, Jana, I didn't have to badger you too hard to talk you into coming on the show, so I really appreciate that.
Oh, shucks. You whiz.
So, Jana, tell me a little bit about, are you from Middle Tennessee originally?
I'm not from here originally, but we moved here because of my husband's job in 2006. And he had worked for companies all over the country, and they gave him a command performance promotion. They told him, become a vice president and take this big promotion or else find another job. And so he had been coming here on a regular basis because of his work, and he loved it, and said, if I ever had to be, forced to move anywhere, I would love to move to Tennessee. And so when he came home and said, hey, would you be willing to move there? I had already heard so many glowing things about it that when the time came to move, I jumped at the chance, and we've been here since then. And he actually no longer works for that company anymore. He actually works for and with me at SVN Accel Commercial Real Estate, but it was what brought us here, and we are really grateful for the move because our kids have grown up here.
Right. So how long have you been here now?
Since 2006.
Okay, great. So Alice and I moved here in December of 2021. So as we're recording this, it's August of 22. So, we've been through a rough couple of years, but we are loving the Franklin, Cool Springs area. I don't know. Am I meant to say Brentwood too? I never know.
Yeah. Just say Middle Tennessee, and then it just covers everybody.
Middle Tennessee. That's right.
Nobody feels bad about being left out.
That's right. I was saying Nashville Metro, and then my friends in Murfreesboro says, we're not part of Nashville Metro. I'm like, well, you are.
Oh, no, they're very careful. You do not. Yep, exactly.
Right. So, you're Nashville too. And so my Murfreesboro, I can't say that to save my life. Murfreesboro. See, and they say it wrong because it's spelled differently. So us Aussies, we're confused. Anyway, I'm like, well, I can't do a Murfreesboro2.com. It's got to all be under the Nashville brand. So
right.
I'm still figuring that out. Anyway, so how did you personally get into real estate?
Well, actually, I have a completely different degrees. I have a degree in advertising and a degree in graphic design. And so I was actually a professional artist before I had a friend who was getting ready to start a commercial real estate appraising company. And he thought, she's really analytical. And he approached me to come and be his first employee. And I didn't know that I'd won the lottery in a bunch of different ways, in that in the United States, and it is actually an apprenticeship type thing where somebody has to agree to take you under their wing and train you for the period of time before you can get your license. So you have to have someone willing to sign their name off on you. And a lot of times they are not willing to put you through school. They want you to be stuck underneath them for as long as possible, etc. And I had a gentleman who had that happen to him in his previous employment. So he decided he wasn't going to do that to somebody else. And so I agreed to go to work for him because I knew I wanted to start a business from the ground up. but I wasn't really sure that I wanted to manage other artists. And I wanted essentially to get a life MBA instead of have to pay to go to school to get an MBA.
Right.
And I thought, well, if I could pay to go get book learning about how to start a business from scratch, or I could take a leap of faith. First off, could I make that giant transition from being literally a professional artist to being a financial analyst? So the jury was still out on that one. Could my brain do it? Number one. And, would I even be able to do it at all? And number two, would I like it, or would it be something that I could do for the rest of my life? And I thought, well, at the very worst, I am going to get some really cool education, and who knows where that's going to take me. Well, that actually did happen in that I got all the way through all my general certification stuff to be a commercial real estate appraiser. And I was getting ready to take the actual test and realized, and I was literally like only, I want to say maybe 10 hours away from finishing my apprenticeship.
Right. Yep.
10 hours. I mean, we're talking like right at the finish line. And I thought, just kill me now. I can't do this for the rest of my life. I cannot be a cubicle jockey writing a 100-page math report, rinse, repeat. But my husband had started a side hustle as a business brokerage, and we transferred ownership of that and signed a non-compete. And so I decided that would be a great transition. I would do that. And instead of that being my side hustle, that became my main hustle.
Right.
We grew that and then sold it. And then I focused just on commercial real estate, and I have not looked back. It's turned out to be, I think, God's plan for me all along. I had no idea that A, I could be good at more than one thing, B, that my brain would actually let me do all of the financial analysis math that I thought I was avoiding by becoming a professional artist.
Yep. And
my natural curiosity about buildings and wealth building, and just for example, when I was a little girl, I was the queen fort builder. I was in a neighborhood of boys, and I was the girl who made all the best possible forts, right?
Right.
And the only purpose that my dolls served was for the scale for the buildings I built them.
Right.
So unbeknownst to me, I was a budding developer and I didn't even know it. And so when I got into commercial real estate, I went, okay, that's why this is so cool. And I have a fascination with the governmental process, which I've been involved in all different kinds of levels of politics throughout my growing up years. And so that actually ended up being a huge blessing when it came to commercial real estate as well, because there's a huge aspect of being able to get things through the government for my job. So now here I am. I talked my husband into coming to work for me. And I was telling a group of people last week, literally, that he was my smartest hire. And I don't know if you can appreciate this, but I know you're married, and I as a spouse was very security conscious and thought, right, at least one of us has to have a job where, yep, there's some sort of predictable income. But I took a leap of faith again, and we ended up both being 100% commission, and it's been fantastic. Wow. We have been able to grow and work together, and it's really been a cool journey.
There's so much to unpack there. It's like 10 episodes in what you've just already talked about. On my business podcast and on the other stuff that I do, I'd love to get into that one day. So we'll just have to reschedule some more of these on the other brands that I have. But the first one I want to talk about is the developing developer. That's pretty cool. About that childhood. I wanted to comment on that, but I also like the idea. Yeah, Alice and I have been married 32 years, and it's interesting because she's that security conscious individual. She took the formal route, good school grades, valedictorian. She saw her way out of poverty through education. And she got a BS and a BA degree, got a pharmacy degree. She's been a pharmacist for 30 plus years, first for a hospital, and then retail, and then another retail, and now she's at Kroger, so down in Franklin.
You married well.
I did. I say God was watching out for me. He looked all over Australia and couldn't find somebody that could keep me on the straight and narrow.
Put up with your shenanigans.
That's right. Put up with my shenanigans, exactly. And so she. So God said, okay, well, there's this little girl over in Kansas that likes koalas. If I give her the urge to go see a koala, then maybe she can run into him and we can make, I don't know. You know how it goes. You don't know what happened, but yeah, it's the best thing. I say it's the second best thing that ever happened to me. Becoming a Christian was the first best, and marrying Alice was the second best thing that could ever happen. But probably the first thing wouldn't have happened if the second thing didn't happen. So is that confusing? Anyway, the show's not about me, folks. That's the Edward Show. That's a different show that you can look for on the podcast. It's called The Edward Show. Go figure. My kids told me one day, it's not The Edward Show, Dad. And I said, it is The Edward Show. And it's been The Edward Show ever since. So, but Alice has supported me 100% in the things that we do. She let me build a private cricket field in my own backyard. That was pretty cool. Anyway, back to you, because you're the reason we're here. So, what do you think was you probably hear from a lot of potential business owners all the time, their fear of going out on their own and starting their own business, right? Would that be true?
Yeah, I hear that every day, because part of what we do is we help people find space when they're first starting out. So we actually have a whole program designed to help walk new business owners through that whole process.
Yeah, so this is a bit different, right? So you really do an education program that I have never heard from another commercial real estate organization anywhere I've been. So dig into that a bit and take 5-10 minutes and tell me about that.
Well, we do it in every aspect of what we do. So it might be, maybe it's helpful to say we are a full service brokerage. And for our listeners, their eyes are glazing over because they're like, what the heck is that? That means that we help people buy, sell, and lease commercial real estate in the Middle Tennessee area for most of the segments. And when I say segments, I mean retail, office, industrial, hospitality, land, anything that you can think of that is related to that. So as I said, I was the managing broker. So there are actually 15 of us now, and each person has a primary and a secondary specialty. And so they help people essentially achieve their business goals, whether they are investors or whether they are end users. So an end user might be somebody who doesn't own the real estate, but is just leasing the property. Right. Yeah. And an investor is the owner who wants to basically have cash flow through leasing it to somebody else. So we educate people every step along the way. So from the very first person who's starting their business out for the first time, part of the fun thing is we can either, if they want to buy an existing business, we can help them buy the existing business through Accel Exit Advisors, or if they're ready to sell their business and buy commercial real estate so that they can have passive income, we help them all the way along that path. When they are brand new starting out, we look at them as a lifelong client. And so we want to help them be so successful when they first start that we get to help them with their second, third, and fourth, and so on, different locations as they grow and expand. And then as they have so much money because they've been so successful, then we help them create a commercial real estate wealth plan, just like you would have a wealth management plan through your financial advisor for stocks and bonds. We help them grow their portfolio from their first one until portfolio maximization. And we do that. And then we help them manage that portfolio, not only for their life, but for the life of their children, if they want to have that be part of their estate plan. And that's really cool. We call that accelerating to generational wealth, because we help people from their very first investment. And sometimes that might be they're starting their business out for the very first time. Right. And we help them be educated about how to get a lease and what that's going to look like. And then if they are wanting to skip that step and just go, maybe they have a corporate job and they just want to have additional income, they don't know quite what to do with it. Their portfolio on the traditional stocks and bonds is already maximized, and they're looking for other ways, especially in these times right now. We have a flight to safety from people who are watching the stock market with all its volatility, and they are trying to find something that is a little bit more recession proof. And when you buy dirt, sticks and bricks, you have a tangible hard asset. And so we're seeing a lot of people who have had, even cryptocurrency or something else where you're watching that create these crazy fluctuations in the market. And they're going to something that is more predictable, because in the end, you still have the land, you still have the building, right? So we offer educational programs for our people. We offer just helping people have the initial education when they first come on as clients. But then we also have, oddly enough, our own webinar that's called Accelerate to Generational Wealth. And the unusual part of that is it's absolutely free. And we have a lot of our competitors actually come and participate in our event. And we have other people who are realtors who come, who are not our competitors necessarily, but maybe they're residential realtors, and they want to learn how to grow their own wealth. And we're willing to share with them the tips and tricks and pitfalls and show them how to do it, and then help them find the properties. That is a very, very different aspect. There are a lot of what we call order takers. You say, find me this spot. Okay, I'm going to go find that spot. You go find them a spot. But you're not looking at the bigger picture, what they're really trying to accomplish. And maybe that spot isn't the best spot for them. Maybe it's someplace else. And maybe that's not even the asset they should be in at all. Maybe they should be doing something else. So we help them, guide them through that. That's where we are truly advisors in that process.
Yeah, and I think that makes you unique. So there's people out there that are listening to this podcast today that have no clue what you just said, right? And
right.
So that's okay, because we all have to start somewhere. I think something that's really good in this day and age that wasn't so when I was growing up is it's a lot more open to be able to research ideas. The internet's made it a lot easier than having to go to a library and dig up an old reference book that's 20 years out of date and the information's incorrect, So there's so much information out there that people can learn and grow. There's really no excuse to not put yourself out there and educate yourself in some degree. You talked about school of life versus the MBA from real life or the MBA from school, and they can work differently for different people, right? My wife took the formal education route. I took the school of hard knocks route. We both paid for our education. We both spent a lot of money, me on mistakes that I made, because I make lots of mistakes.
It's still tuition, though.
It's still tuition, right? Exactly. And so people need to understand that they can learn through your free accelerate. What was that?
Accelerate to generational wealth.
Accelerate to generational. And then don't you also do paid in-person events every couple of years or something as well?
We have an annual event that we did at the City Winery this last year, where we brought in national speakers from all over the country. We brought in one of the number one wealth manager, according to Forbes magazine, and an ESPN commentator, and the guy who started Cardone Capital for Grant Cardone, and the number 5 podcaster in the country. And they were basically talking about business and personal development, but helping people get into the mindset of money so that they can be able to level up. Right? Because a lot of the experts will tell you it's the mindset. Your mind is what's keeping you from wealth. And you really do have to just retrain your brain.
Right.
Instead of saying, I can't afford that, it's what do I have to do to be able to afford that?
Right.
And it's really, there's a big switch that has to happen in order for someone to do that. And so in order for them to invest in commercial real estate, there's a bunch of steps that people have to do to get ready. First off, you got to have a job. You have to have money coming in. you have to be able to qualify for a loan, or you have to know somebody who believes in you enough
Right.
to be able to help invest with you. In the 70s and 80s, there were all these shows on, how to get rich quick in real estate and no money down and just put in an offer. And, there's still an element of that today with wholesaling. There's a bunch of gurus who say that wholesaling is the way to go. And the reality is that there's no get rich quick scheme in real estate, but it's a get rich slow, meaning that if you do it over time, you will get rich if you make good choices.
Yeah.
Versus
you're an overnight success. You're an overnight success that took 15 years,
Right. Well, but it is a lot less risky than a lot of other ways that you can try to make money. And creating passive income, and in a lot of ways it is government sponsored and subsidized. So depending on the segment that you're in, the government's encouraging you, and they have small business loans for both business brokerage and for real estate to actually help you and be encouraged with really competitive rates to get involved in buying your own building if you own your own business, that kind of a thing. Now, so it's pretty fun.
Yeah, and it is. Alice and I have some investment properties, and you and I have talked about adding more of those. Are you a audio or a reading fan? Books? Do you prefer books or audios?
Both.
Okay. And do you have a favorite book that you'd recommend for our listeners and viewers to read?
Well, I think one of the very first ones to get started with mindset would be The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
Yeah.
Or Atomic Habits. I like just about anything from Adam Grant. I like Simon Sinek. I like Robert Kiyosaki. He's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy.
Right.
I've read Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey. Those ones are not as much for investors to start out with. Those are just to get you so that your financial ship is right.
Right.
So if you're in debt over your, up to your eyeballs, and you don't know where to go next, then those ones would be good to get you started. But once you've got your financial house somewhat in order, then there's other folks that I would recommend.
And I like starting with improving personal skills, right? Yeah. So I like starting with how to win friends and influence people, right?
Yep, I love that.
And then mindset
is great.
Sorry?
Yeah. I said Dale Carnegie is great.
And then mindset, you might put mindset before personal skills, but things like The Magic of Thinking Big, Think and Grow Rich, The Power of Positive Thinking, Enthusiasm Makes the Difference. There's so many great books out there, and those are all, classics from their time. And then you move on to things like Richest Man in Babylon, that talks to us about in parables about how we can, I'm like, I'm not reading that. It's like a religious book. No, it's not. It's just a story. It's just got nothing to do with that. I just had it in my mindset before I became a Christian that, no, I don't want to read that stuff. But there's so many good things out there that we can educate ourselves. And my dad wasn't a reader, so he would rip out a page at a time. My mom, who's a big book reader, she hated that he would rip up books. I said, look, if they're just going to sit on the shelf and not be used, rip out a page, put it in your pocket, read it when you get a break. These days we've got our phones, right? So we can look at Audible, we can listen to Audibles, we can look at PDFs. There's a lot of great books available on Google. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff.
I listen to a lot of audio books and podcasts, actually. So I listen to Gary Vee, I listen to Grant Cardone. I listen to a bunch of different real estate investing podcasts that would bore your readers to tears, most likely. But we love. I figure anything that I do, I am a constant learner that is going to help my my investors get better, because I spent a lot of money. I probably spent last year, even though I'm very well qualified at what I do. I'm considered to be an expert, as a matter of fact, but I probably spent around $45,000 last year in personal improvement.
Right.
That's as much money as many people make in an entire year.
And that's a mindset issue, right? Some people will go to school and get an education and pay for that education and be totally okay with it, but paying for books and functions and audios that enhances and increases their knowledge base once they're outside of school, they freak out. They're like, oh, that's a waste of money. And it's not. It's the best money I've ever spent. Alice has to continue to do CE, continuing education, for pharmacy, or she doesn't have a job, right? She doesn't have a license. So there's a lot of professions that have continuing CE, and we have to take charge. If we are in a profession that doesn't force us or make mandatory continuing education, we have to keep learning ourselves. I was having a great conversation with another person from our BNI group, Achille, yesterday. You know, he's a 19-year-old kid and he's got the world in front of him and he's just absorbing information and education. Such a great guy. I'm really excited that he's in our group. But he's like, never stop learning, never stop learning. Oh, like, this is great. And then he starts going, oh, I've wasted so much time. Dude, you're 19. Like, just chill out. Chill out. It's
okay. And I are like, okay, Gilly.
Yeah. Okay. So
what was I doing at 19?
Yeah, exactly. I actually was working at 19. I'd started my first business, but yeah, I goofed off a bit too. But I wasn't.
You and I are weirdos in that way. We probably don't fit that mold.
Yeah, that's true. So, okay. So when you're not working, what are you doing for fun?
Well, I love to, my husband and I, we call it Toodle. Oh, by the way, I got you beat, just so you know, Brian and I have been married going on 35 years. So
congrats. Yep.
So well, he's going to put up with my shenanigans for that long.
Well, you and I would probably agree on this too. In fairness to Alice, it probably feels like 50 years for her, you know, because of my shenanigans. So maybe, but I'm not going to claim that.
Well, I have a couple of things we do that are called, we joke, we call it tootling, and that's an old-fashioned word for wandering around with aimlessly just looking at things.
Okay.
And we look at, and I know this is going to again bore your readers to tears, but I love to look at real estate. It is something that absolutely fascinates me, but I won't go into that because again, that's not going to appeal to most of your people. But I also belong to a group called Alpha Badass Women. And we go revisit all of the restaurants downtown and in the Middle Tennessee area. We don't ever go to the same one twice.
Wow.
And I just went to one called the Park Cafe in Sylvan Park, and I just want to give a shout out to them. They were freaking awesome. That is a hidden gem. If you haven't eaten there, my steak and Brussels sprouts was to die for. It was really good. So that's a helpful tip for our listeners today.
Are you saying Park, P-A-R-K?
P-A-R-K.
Okay.
Park Cafe. And then I live in the town of Nolensville, and my favorite go-to, my personal assistant laughs at me because she's the one that sees all of our receipts. And she knows that I love to go to Outlanders. It's a fried chicken place in Nolensville because she sees that probably once every 2 or 3 weeks that I'm going to go to Outlanders. So love to do that. And then I am a huge fan of just going to historical sites, just seeing what Nashville has to offer. So just like a week or so ago, Brian and I went and wandered around Centennial Park and just read all the monuments and looked at everything that was there to see, that kind of thing.
Right.
So there's just a lot to do and see in Nashville.
There is. And that's one of the reasons I started the podcast is like, I'll never get to all of this. And unless people clue me in, where did I go? Where did we go the other day that somebody on one of my podcasts had said? It's probably a well-known spot. Is it the Loveless Cafe? Is that the one?
Yeah, on Highway 100. Yes.
Yeah. And so we out there and walked around. We didn't go in to eat, like the line was crazy long, but we had fun just checking that out. Didn't spend any money. You know, a lot of times people go, oh, it always costs money to do everything. I don't know, we've been married 32 years. We've gotten really good at finding things that don't cost any money, you know?
Well, another place you ought to do that's not going to cost you a lot is to, if in your version of tootling with your wife, is a place that is on the way to Shelbyville from Murfreesboro called Uncle Nearest.
Uncle, like uncle?
Uncle Nearest, yes. So this is actually a really cool story. So in the time when people were enslaved, an enslaved person was asked by the Bell family to come up with a way to do charcoal distilling for whiskey. And the enslaved person, his name was Nearest Green, and he helped a scrawny free white boy learn how to do distilling through charcoal. And that young scrawny guy's name was Jack Daniels.
Oh, wow.
And the Jack Daniels distillery has always had a descendant of the Green family working for them. And Nearest Green's great granddaughter, rather, it's either granddaughter or great granddaughter. She, of course, followed in the family footsteps, and she is the first female African-American master distiller in the world.
Wow.
And she basically went back and in her mind and in the mind of a lot of whiskey aficionados, she actually perfected and slightly changed the way that the distillery process was done as an improvement. And so now there is, on the way to Shelbyville, Nearest Green, it's called Uncle Nearest, and it's a distillery it's on the Jack Trail, and they have huge horse barns, and under construction right now is the longest bar in the United States.
Oh, wow. And
they'll have an event venue. So, and that's under construction, but the tourist shop is already open, and you can already go and buy their internationally award-winning whiskey in Uncle Nearest.
That's awesome.
Can't miss it. It's a beautiful, big facility, but that's another little hidden gem. And to just drive down there, it's the price of gas.
Right.
And then you can go to the gift shop and just learn, and then have a piece of history. I mean, who hasn't heard of Jack Daniels?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Who taught Jack Daniels? It was Nearest Green.
Right. And then I think also on the way, I think somebody told us to go down to Bell Buckle. And so that's around.
It's on the way to Bell Buckle.
Yeah.
It's actually in between Bell Buckle and Shelbyville.
Yeah. See, I'm learning. Like, I actually know where you're talking about. So that's good. So, okay. So we've been at this for about 30 minutes. What should my readers and listeners know about you? And what's the best way to reach out to you if they could utilize your services?
Probably the best thing that you would want to know about me is we really do pride ourselves on being ethical. So if you're one of those people that wants to invest in commercial real estate and rape and pillage and skate along the edges, and then you probably don't want to hire us. So we are not those people. We are not for everyone. I am a feisty negotiator, so I will try to get you the best price possible, but that's not necessarily our claim to fame. Probably the biggest thing that you're going to want to know about my company is that SVN, as a company, we have the largest distribution network for advertising of any commercial real estate company in the United States today.
Wow. That
means if the law of supply and demand is true, which means that if you have a constant or a supply that is static, which in the case of commercial real estate, let's say that this is the supply, and you have a greater demand, which is essentially if we're exposing your property to more people, you're creating a greater demand. And by so doing that, it actually drives the price up.
Right.
So we can say that we have a wider distribution network than any other real estate company in America today, number one. And number two, we share our commission 50-50 with the other side 100% of the time.
Oh, wow.
So if you're hiring us, you're not only just hiring us, you're hiring everybody else because we're willing to share our commission. And if you have any experience in commercial real estate at all, you will know that most of the other side does not share commission.
Right.
If they are listing their property, they're getting paid commission, but they're not going to share it with the buy side.
Right.
So they're actually eliminating a huge portion of the market who might get you a better price. In fact, they have done studies and shown that overall transactions overall in the United States last year, there was a 9.6% price increase for those people who use their who used SVN, who shared their commission than if the price was not, or the commission was not shared.
Wow, that's amazing.
So if you are $1 million property, and that's a lot of money, yes, $10 million, and that, you know, if you just got 10% more on a $10 million property,
it's another $1 million.
Yeah. So who wouldn't want to have $1 million more instead of hiring an agent who would not share commission?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, we have a website. It's accelcre.com. So like accelerate, but it's just ACCEL and CRE commercial real estate.com. So ACCELCRE.com. And if you go to our website, not only can you get a hold of me, but you can also watch any of our educational offerings online. And if you want to watch them live, you can sign up and watch them via webinar or in person. But you do have to sign up even if you're going to come in person, because space is limited and it does fill up fast. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hey, Jana, thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it, and the ideas that you shared today. And I'd love to have you back.
It was an absolute pleasure, Ed, and you're one of my favorite people in BNI. I think you already know that, and it is truly an honor to be here. And I look forward to you and I doing lots of deals in the future.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And viewers and listeners, sorry, I was entranced. You didn't get any dad jokes out of me today. I apologize for that. But you can always check out my TikTok channel, Special Ed Fox Dad Jokes, and that's nothing but dad jokes. Jana and I talked about doing a few, but they just didn't fit. We were getting such great information. So thanks again, Jana, and I look forward to getting this out there and sharing it with a whole new audience.
I really am grateful. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Yeah, thank you very much.
This is the Nashville2 Podcast with your host, Edward Fox.